The blood on Cole Brennan's knuckles was still wet when Emma Marsh pressed the barrel of her Henry rifle to his forehead. 1 pound of pressure. That's all it would take, maybe less. The trigger was clean, oiled, eager, 15 rounds chambered. She'd only need 1. I watched from across the street, my hand frozen on the clinic door, and I knew, God help me, I knew, that in the next 3 seconds, someone was going to die. Maybe Cole, maybe Emma's soul, maybe both. "Emma," I said. My voice came out steadier than I felt. "Emma, don't!" She didn't look at me. Her eyes stayed locked on Cole Brennan's face, on the fear blooming there like blood in water. Her finger rested on that trigger the way a pianist rests on a key, waiting for the precise moment to strike. I am 82 years old, and I'm writing this because that moment, that single second when everything hung in balance, has haunted me for 30 years. Because Emma Marsh died 2 years ago, and I never told her the truth about why I stopped her that night. Because I'm dying, and some truths shouldn't die with me, even if they should. "Grandpa, what are you writing?" My granddaughter Alice stands in the doorway of my study, a tray of supper in her hands. The firelight catches her face, makes her look younger than 20. Beyond the window, March snow falls on the Morrison Ranch in thick, silent curtains. Colorado is gentler than the prairie ever was, but no less cold. "Confession," I tell her, setting down my pen. My hands shake these days. Arthritis mostly, but also the morphine wearing thin. The cancer in my bones has maybe 3 days left to wait. I'm writing a confession. Alice sets the tray on my desk, beef broth, bread I won't eat, and peers at the pages spreading across the walnut surface. My handwriting, never beautiful, has degraded to something between scripture and spider tracks. A confession? She sits in the chair across from me, curiosity overcoming propriety. "Grandpa, what could you possibly need to confess? You're the most upstanding man in 3 counties. I almost laugh. Almost. "I need to tell you about a woman named Emma Marsh," I say, "and about the night I stopped her from doing something I'm still not sure was right or wrong." Alice's eyebrows rise. In the firelight, she looks so much like her grandmother, my wife Eleanor, who I loved dutifully for 43 years and buried 5 years ago with appropriate grief. Eleanor was a good woman, a kind woman. She deserved better than a husband whose heart lived in someone else's memory. "Who was Emma Marsh?" Alice asks. I pick up my pen again. "The woman I loved for 40 years and never told." The silence that follows is profound. Outside, wind rattles the windows. The fire pops and settles. "You were married to Grandma," Alice says carefully. "I was, and I honored that marriage every day." I meet her eyes. "Love doesn't ask permission, child. It just arrives and ruins you quietly." To understand why I stopped Emma that night, you need to know what I promised her mother 18 years before Emma was born. Red Creek, Dakota Territory. August 14, 1874. Sarah Marsh was dying, and we both knew it. I'd delivered her baby 3 hours earlier, a healthy girl, loud and furious at being thrust into the world. But the bleeding hadn't stopped. I'd tried everything in my limited frontier arsenal: pressure, elevation, ergot extract that was probably more sawdust than medicine. Nothing worked. The prairie sun was setting through the window of the Marsh bedroom, painting everything in amber light that made blood look almost beautiful. Samuel Marsh stood in the doorway, his face carved from stone, holding his newborn daughter, who wouldn't stop crying. He knew. Farmers know death the way city folk know addresses. "Richard," Sarah's voice was barely there. I leaned close, smelling copper and sweat and the particular sweetness that accompanies dying. "Richard promised me something." "Anything," I said, and meant it. I was 34 years old and still believed promises were things you could keep. Her hand found mine, cold already. "If anything happens to Sam, promise you'll watch over her." Her eyes drifted to the baby in Samuel's arms. "Don't let her be alone. Promise me. The baby, Emma, screamed louder, as if she knew what was being asked. "I promise," I said. Sarah Marsh died 37 minutes later. Samuel carried her body to the family plot himself, dug the grave in hard summer ground, and came back to feed his daughter because grief doesn't change the fact that a child needs feeding. I kept that promise for 46 years. It destroyed both our lives. Morrison Ranch, Colorado, March 13, 1922. "You loved her," Alice says. Not a question. I nod, writing as I speak. The morphine makes everything feel distant, like I'm narrating someone else's life. From the time she was 24 until the day she died at 62, I never told her, never touched her beyond what was medical or appropriate. I was her doctor, her father's friend, the man who'd promised her dead mother to keep her safe. "And did you?" Alice asks quietly. "Keep her safe?" I stop writing. Look at the pages spreading across my desk like accusations. "I kept her alive," I say finally, "but I couldn't keep her from being alone." Red Creek, Dakota Territory, June 10, 1892. 2 days before Billy Cotter burst into my clinic at 4:30, all elbows and breathless 14-year-old panic. Doc Morrison!" I was suturing a farmer's hand, Tom Garrett, who'd tangled with a saw and lost. "Billy, I'm with a patient. Can it wait?" "No, sir." The boy's face was flushed, eyes wild. "I heard Mr. Cole talking. Him and Dutch Reynolds. They're planning something for Mr. Marsh, something bad, real bad." My hand stilled over Garrett's stitches. Cole Brennan, of course. Cole had owned Red Creek for 2 years now, not officially, but in every way that mattered. The bank, the feed store, the sheriff's salary, Judge Morrison's mortgage. No relation to me, thank God. 37 farms foreclosed and counting. The Marsh place would be 38. "What exactly did you hear?" I asked, tying off the suture. "They were in the back room at Murphy's. I was mucking the stalls next door." Billy twisted his cap in his hands. "Dutch said, 'Tomorrow noon, then?' And Mr. Cole said, 'Tomorrow. Give the old man his chance. When he can't take it, the land's mine.'" Tom Garrett grunted as I wrapped his hand. "Boy's probably right, Doc. Cole's been circling Samuel Marsh like a vulture for months." I should have listened. Should have ridden out to the Marsh place, warned Samuel, helped him pack up and leave before Cole's trap snapped shut. Instead, I gave Billy a nickel and patted his shoulder. "Don't worry, son. Men talk tough. Doesn't mean they'll follow through." Billy looked at me with those trusting eyes that still haunt me 30 years later, nodded, and left. I finished bandaging Garrett's hand, told him to keep it clean, collected my $2 fee. Morrison Ranch, 1922. "Why didn't you warn him?" Alice asks. I stare at the page where I've just written those words. "And I did nothing." "Because," I say slowly, "Cole Brennan had been paying for my medical supplies, scalpels from Kansas City, morphine, carbolic acid, real ether, not the rotgut the Territory dispensary sold. I was bought, and I didn't even know it." Alice's face hardens. "You let an old man walk into a trap because of medical supplies?" "No," I say. "I let an old man walk into a trap because I was afraid. The supplies were just the excuse I told myself." Red Creek, June 11th, 1892. The day before Samuel Marsh walked into Cole Brennan's office at 10 in the morning with his hat in his hands and what was left of his dignity in his spine. I wasn't there, but Samuel told me later, in those 3 weeks before his heart gave out. Told me in fragments while I changed his bandages and pretended his ribs were healing better than they were. Cole's office sat above the feed store, too fine for a frontier town, walnut desk shipped from Kansas City, Persian rug on plank floors. Cole sat behind that desk like a king on a throne, 28 years old, handsome in a way that made men careless, tailored vest, gold watch chain, smile that never reached his eyes. "Mr. Brennan," Samuel said, "I'm here about the loan." Cole didn't stand, didn't offer a chair, just looked at Samuel the way a man looks at dog shit on his boot. 3 months overdue, Sam. The hail took the wheat crop, you know that, everyone knows it. I'm good for the money come spring. Spring's 6 months away. Cole leaned back, laced his fingers over his vest. You'll be dead by spring, old man. Heart'll give out, or you'll fall off a horse or something. Men your age, they just stop." Samuel's jaw tightened. He was 79 years old, and he felt every year pressing down on him like earth on a coffin lid. "I'm asking for an extension, 30 days, and I'm telling you no." Cole stood, walked around the desk, circled Samuel like a predator. "But I'll make you a deal, man to man." The way he said man to man made Samuel's stomach turn. "You land one punch on me," Cole said, stopping in front of him. "Just one. And you get a full month extension. No interest, no penalties. We'll call it entertainment." "I'm not fighting you." "Then you're losing the farm. Today. Sheriff's got the foreclosure papers ready. I'll own your land by sundown. That 300 acres your granddaddy died protecting? Mine. That house your daughter lives in? Mine. Every fence post you ever planted, every acre you ever plowed, all mine." Samuel stood there, feeling the weight of it. 3 generations. His daughter still working that land, still believing in it, gone. Unless he could land one punch on a man 40 years younger. "One punch?" Samuel said quietly. Cole's smile widened. "That's the spirit. Murphy's Trading House. Noon tomorrow. Give the boys a show." I saw Samuel ride past my clinic window that afternoon, moving slower than usual on his old mare. Something in the set of his shoulders made my chest tight. I should have gone after him, should have called out, asked what happened, offered help. Instead, I turned back to my accounts ledger and told myself it was none of my business. Morrison Ranch, 1922. "Did Emma know?" Alice asks. "That her father was walking into a trap?" "Not until it was too late," I say. "She was fixing fence line on the North 40 that morning. 34 years old, unmarried, strong from 2 decades of farm work. She'd turned down 4 marriage proposals because none of the men understood what that land meant, what it cost, what it was worth." I pause, remembering Emma at 34, the way she moved, efficient, certain, capable. The way she looked at the horizon like it was something she could hold in her hands if she just reached far enough. "Her father rode up that afternoon," I continue, "told her he had bank business. She asked him not to go. He went anyway." Alice is quiet for a long moment, then, "You loved her even then?" I close my eyes. See Emma in sunlight, mending wire, hands scarred and honest. See myself at 52, watching from too far away, wanting things I had no right to want. "I loved her from the time she was 24, I say, when her brother died and she brought his body to my clinic. I held her while she cried, and something in me broke open that never healed. But I was 47, old enough to be her father. I'd delivered her. I'd promised her mother. So I buried it. For 18 years, I buried it. Until the night she held a gun to Cole Brennan's head," Alice says softly. "Until then." Red Creek, June 12, 1892. Noon. By the time word spread through Red Creek, 30 men had gathered at Murphy's Trading House. Ranchers, drifters, Cole's hired guns, men who used to nod hello to Samuel Marsh at church, who used to ask his advice about planting schedules and weather patterns. Now they just wanted to watch him bleed. Murphy's wasn't much. Dirt floor, rough-cut bar, tables made from barn wood salvaged from foreclosed farms. It smelled like old sweat and bad whiskey and the particular shame of men who'd given up fighting. The crowd parted when Samuel walked in at noon. Cole Brennan stood in the center of the room, already rolling his shoulders loose, already smiling. "Rules are simple," Cole announced. "Old Sam lands one punch, just one, and he keeps his farm another month. He doesn't. I take everything he owns. Sound fair?" Murmurs of agreement from men who knew damn well it wasn't fair but were too afraid to say otherwise. Samuel raised his fists. Carpenter's hands. Farmer's hands, good for holding a plow or driving fence posts. Not for fighting a man who'd killed 6 people in Abilene over a card game. In the back corner, James Cotter, Billy's father, watched and said nothing. His boy had warned the doctor. The doctor had done nothing. Now James watched an old man he'd known his whole life prepare to be destroyed, and he said nothing. 30 men, 30 witnesses, 30 cowards. I was the 31st. I wasn't even there. Morrison Ranch, 1922. My hand cramps around the pen. Alice notices, reaches for the morphine bottle on my desk. Not yet, I tell her. I need to finish this part with a clear head. Grandpa, you're in pain. I've been in pain for 30 years, child. A few more hours won't kill me. I look at her. The cancer will do that soon enough. She sits back, eyes wet, and I realize I'm crying too, not from the pain in my bones, from the pain in what I'm about to write. What happened at Murphy's? Alice asks quietly. I pick up the pen. Cole Brennan didn't just beat Samuel Marsh, I say. He educated him, educated all of us, about what happens when you can't pay your debts, about what defiance costs, about who really owned Red Creek. I write, the first punch broke Samuel's nose, the second cracked his ribs. By the fifth, he couldn't stand without Cole holding him up. By the 10th, his left hand was shattered under Cole's boot heel. By the time it ended, Samuel Marsh was broken in ways I couldn't fix. And I arrived just in time to kneel in his blood and realize I could have stopped it all with one warning. I should have stopped him. But I was afraid. Billy Cotter found me treating a child's fever when he burst through the clinic door for the second time in 2 days. This time, he didn't speak, just grabbed my arm and pulled. I knew before I followed him. The way you know a bone is broken before you see the x-ray. The way you know death is in the room before you check for a pulse. Murphy's trading house was silent when I pushed through the door. Wrong kind of silent. Heavy and guilty, like the air after a murder. 30 men lined the walls, not looking at each other. Not looking at anything except their boots and their shame. In the corner, propped against the wall like a broken doll, was Samuel Marsh. I've set bones on battlefields. I've amputated limbs by candlelight with whiskey for anesthesia and prayer for skill. I've held dying men while they begged for their mothers and watched children slip away from fevers I couldn't break. But I'd never seen methodical cruelty like what Cole Brennan had done to Samuel Marsh. His face was beaten to raw meat, one eye swollen completely shut, the other a slit of white and purple flesh. His shirt hung in tatters, ribs showing through, not just bruised but wrong, caved in on the left side where boots had done their work. His left hand, his left hand looked like someone had taken a hammer to every bone and then stomped on the pieces. Blood pooled beneath him, soaking into the sawdust floor. His breathing made a wet, bubbling sound that told me at least one rib had punctured his lung. Jesus Christ, I whispered. Cole Brennan stood at the bar, examining his knuckles with professional detachment. He looked up when I entered, smiled. Doc, perfect timing. Perfect. Check if he's alive, would you? I'd hate to hang for killing a man who was just playing possum. I wanted to hit him, wanted to take the scalpel in my coat pocket and open his throat. Instead, I knelt beside Samuel, pressed my fingers to his neck. Pulse, thready, irregular. But there. He's alive, I said. Shame. Cole drained his whiskey. Means I have to wait for the foreclosure papers. He looked at the 30 men. Anybody touches him before I leave gets the same treatment. We clear? 30 heads nodded. I helped Samuel up as gently as I could. He made a sound that wasn't human when I got my arm under his shoulders. His good eye found mine, and I saw the question there. Why didn't you warn me? I had no answer. Morrison Ranch, 1922. I have to stop writing. My hands shake too badly, and it's not the arthritis. Alice has been reading over my shoulder. When I set down the pen, she puts her hand on mine. Grandpa, she says quietly, you couldn't have known it would be that bad. I knew enough, I say. Billy told me, and I did nothing. You were afraid. Fear is not an excuse. I pull my hand away, harder than I intend. Samuel Marsh walked into that room because I was too much of a coward to warn him. And Emma, my voice breaks. Alice waits. Emma had to see her father like that because I failed her, failed him, failed the promise I made to Sarah. Alice is quiet for a long time, then, is that why you stopped her? From killing Cole? To make up for not saving her father? I pick up the pen again. No, I say. I stopped her because I'd seen what she looked like the last time she killed a man. And I knew if she pulled that trigger, I'd lose her forever. Getting Samuel from Murphy's to my clinic took 10 minutes that felt like hours. Every step jarred him. Every jar brought sounds that made my stomach turn. Nobody helped. The 30 men melted away like morning fog, disappearing into doorways and alleys, already rehearsing the stories they'd tell their wives about why they hadn't intervened. By the time I got him onto my examination table, he'd faded in and out of consciousness 3 times. I cut away his shirt, counted ribs. 4 broken, maybe 5, all on the left side. 1 had definitely punctured the lung. I could hear air whistling through the wound with each breath. The hand would need surgery I wasn't equipped to perform. Internal bleeding, almost certainly. "Samuel," I said, loud enough to pull him back. "Samuel, can you hear me?" His good eye opened. "Emma," he whispered. Don't tell Emma. I have to, the farm." His good hand grabbed my wrist with surprising strength. "Gotta save the farm. 3 generations. Can't let him. Samuel, forget the farm. You need—" The clinic door crashed open. Emma Marsh stood in the doorway, backlit by afternoon sun, and for a moment she was just a silhouette. Then she stepped inside and I saw her face. I'd known Emma her entire life, delivered her, watched her grow from a furious infant to a capable woman. I'd seen her grieve her mother at 8, face down Comanche raiders at 12, bury her brother at 17. I'd watched her turn down 4 marriage proposals with quiet dignity, work her father's land with the strength of 2 men, and hold her head high when the town whispered about the Marsh girl who'd never marry. But I'd never seen her look like this. She walked to the table, didn't run, didn't cry out, just walked with terrible purpose and looked at what Cole Brennan had done to her father. 3 seconds of absolute silence, then her face did something I'll never forget. Not crumple. Crumpling is collapse. Surrender. This was transformation. Grief crystallizing into something colder, harder, sharper than any scalpel in my cabinet. "Emma," I started. She turned those eyes on me, empty of everything except calculation. "Will he live?" Not how is he, or what happened, or who did this. Just, will he live? "I don't know," I said honestly. "His lungs punctured, ribs broken, hand shattered, internal bleeding. I can stabilize him, but—" "Do it." She turned without another word and walked out. I should have stopped her then. Should have called after her, asked where she was going, told her to stay. But I was elbow deep in her father's blood, and I let her go. Morrison Ranch, 1922. "You knew," Alice says. "You knew what she was going to do." I knew that look. I close my eyes, see Emma's face in the doorway. I'd seen it once before. When? I open my eyes, look at the page where I need to write this next part. 10 years earlier, I say, when she killed 3 men in a canyon and came to confess. Red Creek, summer 1882. Emma was 24 years old when the rustlers hit. They took cattle from 4 farms in one night. Professional operation, well planned. Sheriff Wade was younger then, less corrupt, still believed in justice. He formed a posse, 8 men and Emma Marsh, who could shoot better than 6 of them, and everyone knew it. They tracked the rustlers to a canyon 20 miles south, found them camped, cattle-penned, dividing up their take. The shootout lasted maybe 3 minutes. When it was over, 3 rustlers were dead, 2 by Emma's rifle. I wasn't there. But Emma came to my clinic that night, after midnight, and I'd never seen anyone shake like that, not from cold, not from fear, from something else entirely. "I need to tell someone," she said, "or I'll go mad." I poured her whiskey. She didn't drink it, just held the glass and stared at her hands. "I shot 2 of them," she said. "Center mass, clean. The first one I didn't think. Just saw him draw on Pete Walker, and I fired. He went down. The second one, he was running. I tracked him, led him by maybe 3 feet and squeezed. He fell mid-stride." "You saved lives." "I know." She looked up at me. "That's not what scares me, Richard. What scares me is—" I didn't feel what I thought I'd feel. What did you expect to feel? Horror, guilt, something. Her hands tightened on the glass. But I just felt clarity, like everything made sense for those 10 seconds. No doubt, no fear, no question. Just target, breath, squeeze, target down. Move to the next one. She set down the glass, looked at me with eyes that were asking a question I didn't want to answer. "What if I'm the kind of person who's good at killing?" she asked. "What if that's who I am?" I reached across the table, the only time I ever touched her that wasn't medical necessity, and took her hands in mine. They were shaking so hard I could feel it in my chest. "Emma, you're not good at killing," I said. "You're good at protecting. There's a difference." "Is there? Because I can't tell anymore." I wanted to say yes, wanted to give her certainty, absolution, peace. But I'd seen men come back from the war with that same look, the clarity that comes from being competent at terrible things. "The difference," I said carefully, "is that you came here to confess. Killers don't confess, they hunt." She pulled her hands back, stood, walked to the door. "Thank you," she said without turning around, "for listening. Emma, don't tell anyone, please, not even Pa." "I won't." She left. I sat in my clinic until dawn, thinking about the difference between protecting and killing, and whether there really was one when both ended with bodies in the dirt. Morrison Ranch, 1922. "You were in love with her even then," Alice says. I nod. I realized it that night, watching her struggle with what she'd done, what she'd discovered about herself. I wanted to hold her, tell her it would be all right, keep her safe from everything, including herself. "But you didn't." "No, I was 47. She was 24. I'd promised her dying mother. I was her doctor, her father's friend." I look at my granddaughter. "There are some things you don't get to have, no matter how much you want them." Alice is quiet. Then, "And when she walked out of your clinic that day, after seeing her father beaten, you recognized that look. Yes, the canyon look, the clarity that comes from knowing exactly what you're capable of. And you knew she was going to kill Cole Brennan." I write, "Yes." Samuel's breathing stabilized around sunset. I'd done what I could, ribs splinted, hands set and wrapped, lung wound packed and bandaged. He'd live. For a while. I stood at my clinic window watching the street, wondering where Emma had gone, knowing exactly where she'd gone. Home, to prepare. I should have gone after her, should have ridden out to the Marsh place, reasoned with her, offered alternatives. But Samuel was unconscious on my table, and I couldn't leave him. And, God forgive me, part of me wanted to see what would happen. Part of me wanted Cole Brennan to pay for what he'd done. Emma rode home through the long prairie afternoon, the sun bleeding red across the western sky. She didn't ride hard, didn't hurry, just moved with the same terrible purpose I'd seen in her walk. I learned this later, from what she told me in those last weeks, from what I could piece together from Billy Cotter, who'd watched from the stable, from what I knew of Emma after 34 years of loving her from a distance. She arrived at the Marsh homestead as shadows stretched across 300 acres of legacy. 3 generations. Her great-grandfather had claimed this land in 1841. Her grandfather had defended it from drought and Comanche. Her father had worked it for 50 years, and now a man with a gold watch and a smile like broken glass was going to take it because an old man couldn't land one punch. Emma put her horse in the stable, fed both horses, milked the cow, closed the chickens in the coop, checked the fence on the near pasture, normal evening chores, routine as ritual. As long as I do these things, she thought, the world hasn't ended. Then she went inside and opened her father's gun cabinet. The Henry rifle was first, .44-40 caliber, lever action, 15 rounds. Her father had carried it at Pea Ridge during the war. Emma had learned to shoot with it when she was 12, the day after the Comanche raid, when her father decided she needed to be able to protect herself. She worked the action, clean, oiled, perfect. Loaded 15 rounds, checked each one for defects, proper seating, clean brass. The .45 Colt revolver was next. 6 rounds, fully loaded. She strapped on her father's gun belt. felt the weight settle on her hips, foreign and familiar all at once. In the window glass she caught her own reflection and saw the woman from the canyon, the one with clarity instead of doubt, the one who was good at terrible things. Emma closed her eyes, thought about her father's broken body on Doc Morrison's table, thought about Cole Brennan's smile, thought about 300 acres and 3 generations and promises that had been beaten into blood on a sawdust floor. When she opened her eyes, the woman in the glass was still there. "All right," Emma said to her reflection, to the ghost of the canyon, to whoever she was becoming. "All right." She picked up the Henry rifle and walked out into the gathering dark. Morrison Ranch, 1922. My hand cramps again. This time I let Alice pour the morphine. 2 drops in water. Not enough to fog me completely, but enough to take the edge off the fire in my bones. "She was going to kill him," Alice says. "Cole Brennan." "Yes." "And you let her go." "I didn't know for certain, not then." I sipped the morphine water. I told myself she might just be protecting the farm. Maybe she'd sit on the porch with the rifle, dare Cole to come take the land. Maybe she'd ride into town and threaten him, make him back off. But you didn't believe that. "No." Alice leans forward. "Grandpa, why didn't you stop her before she got to town? You could have ridden out, talked to her. Because Samuel was dying on my table, because I couldn't leave him." I meet her eyes. "And because part of me, God help me, part of me, wanted her to do it." The confession hangs in the air between us. "You wanted Cole Brennan dead," Alice says slowly. "I wanted him to pay for what he'd done, for beating an old man to pulp in front of 30 witnesses, for buying a town with fear, for 2 years of cruelty that everyone pretended not to see." I look at my shaking hands. "But I didn't want Emma to be the one who killed him, because I knew what it would cost her." "How did you know?" "Because I'd seen her after the canyon. I'd held her hands while she shook. I'd watched her fight with the part of herself that was good at violence." I close my eyes. "And I knew if she pulled that trigger on Cole Brennan, that part would win. Forever." I was checking Samuel's bandages when Billy Cotter appeared in my doorway for the 3rd time. "Doc," he said, quiet, scared. "Miss Emma just rode past, heading into town. She's got the Henry." I looked at Samuel, unconscious on the table, looked at Billy, looked at the street outside where the moon was rising full and bright. "Go home, Billy," I said. "Get your father. Tell him to keep you inside tonight. Don't come out for anything." "Doc, what's going to happen?" I thought about Emma in the canyon, Emma in my clinic that night, asking if she was the kind of person who's good at killing. Emma walking out of my clinic that afternoon with grief crystallized into something sharp and cold. "I don't know," I said. "But someone's going to die." Billy ran. I stood at the window and watched Emma Marsh ride into Red Creek under a hunter's moon, the Henry rifle slung across her back, riding with the purpose of a woman who'd already decided and was just executing the plan. She tied her horse outside Murphy's trading house, checked the Henry one more time, worked the lever, chambered around. The sound carried in the still night air, loud as a church bell, final as a grave closing. Then Emma Marsh walked through the door of Murphy's for the 2nd time that day. And I knew, the way you know a bone is broken before you see the x-ray, the way you know death is in the room before you check for a pulse, that everything was about to change, that the woman who walked out of that building would not be the same one who walked in, that I was about to lose her one way or another. I grabbed my medical bag and ran. Morrison Ranch, 1922. Alice sets down the pages she's been reading. Her face has gone pale in the firelight. "You ran toward the gunfire," she says. "You ran toward it." "I ran toward her," I correct. "There's a difference." "Grandpa, you were a doctor, not a fighter. What were you going to do?" I look at my arthritic hands, remembering how they shook that night as I ran across the dusty street. How useless they felt, how empty without a weapon, without anything to offer except words. I was going to stop her, I say, somehow, some way, before she became something she couldn't come back from. "But you didn't stop her from the shooting," Alice says carefully. "You stopped her after." Yes. So 4 men died. I nod, writing. 4 men died because I was too slow, or because I needed to see if Emma could stop herself. I've never been sure which. Tell me what happened, Alice says quietly. I pick up the pen. I'll tell you what I saw, I say. What I reconstructed from witnesses. What Emma told me later, in pieces, when the nightmares wouldn't let her sleep. I pause. And what I understood about who she really was. Red Creek, June 12, 1892. Night. The moon hung full and bright over Red Creek, painting everything in silver and shadow. Murphy's trading house glowed with lamplight, voices carrying through the open windows, laughter, the clink of glasses, clink of men celebrating Cole Brennan's victory over an old farmer who dared to resist. Emma Marsh stood in the street, the Henry rifle in her hands, and listened to them toast her father's destruction. Then she walked through the door. The room went silent the way a heart stops. Sudden, absolute, wrong. 30 men, give or take, some of the same ones who'd watched that afternoon, others who'd heard the story secondhand and wanted to bask in Cole's reflected power. All of them frozen now, drinks halfway to lips, cards suspended in mid-deal, conversations dying on tongues. In the corner, Cole Brennan stood with 4 men I recognized even from across the street where I'd just arrived, breathless from running. Dutch Reynolds, 40-something, gray in his beard, 6 men dead in Kansas over a woman who wasn't worth it. Fast hands, dead eyes, loyal to whoever paid best. Cutter Morgan, called that because he preferred knives but knew his way around a pistol. Mean drunk, meaner sober. Tom and James Pike, brothers. Tom was the older one, maybe 35, a veteran of something. You could see it in how he moved, how his eyes tracked threats. James couldn't have been more than 20, but he wore his gun like he'd been born with it. Professional killers, all 4. Men who'd made murder a trade. Emma looked at them with the same expression I'd seen on surgeons' faces before a difficult operation. Not anger, not fear, just assessment. Outside, she said to Cole, voice flat, final. Cole set down his whiskey, smiled that smile I'd learned to hate. Emma Marsh, twice in one day. I'm honored. Outside, now. Why would I do that? I'm comfortable here, among friends. He gestured at the 4 gunmen. And as you can see, I'm well protected. Emma worked the Henry's lever. The sound of a round chambering cut through the silence like a blade through flesh. Because if you don't, she said, I'm going to shoot you right here, right now. And then I'm going to shoot every man who reaches for a gun. She scanned the room. 15 rounds in the Henry, 6 in the revolver, 21 shots total. I count 19 men standing. Her eyes came back to Cole. That's 2 bullets to spare. I watched from the clinic window across the street, my medical bag useless in my hand, and I knew what was coming. The look on Emma's face wasn't rage, wasn't grief. It was that terrible clarity I'd seen in the canyon. The look that said she'd already run the calculations, already accepted the cost, already decided who would live and who would die. Cole's jaw tightened. For the first time since I'd known him, the smile didn't reach his eyes because there was no smile at all. You're making a mistake, girl. Probably. Let's find out. She backed toward the door. Cole followed. So did his 4 hired guns. So did the crowd, because this was Red Creek in 1892 and blood sport was the only entertainment we had. Morrison Ranch, 1922. She was going to kill all 5 of them, Alice says. She knew it before she even walked in. Yes. Grandpa, that's not self-defense, that's execution, I finish. I know, so did she. I meet my granddaughter's eyes. But what would you have done? Your father beaten nearly to death in front of 30 witnesses. The man who did it protected by the law he'd bought. No justice coming, no help. Just you, a rifle, and the certainty that if you don't act, he'll do it to someone else's father tomorrow. Alice is quiet for a long moment. I don't know, she says finally. Neither did Emma, but she chose action over inaction. Violence over surrender. I write, and I loved her for it, even as it terrified me. The street was empty except for them. Wind blew dust devils between the buildings, carrying the smell of horses and wood smoke and something electric, like before a lightning strike. 5 men on the porch of Murphy's trading house. 1 woman in the street, 30 feet away. 20 spectators pressed against storefronts, wanting to watch, but not wanting to catch stray bullets. I stood in the shadow of my clinic doorway, close enough to see their faces in the moonlight, close enough to hear. "Last chance," Cole said. His voice had changed, less confident, more calculating. "You kill me, you'll hang. My men will testify. They'll say you murdered me in cold blood, that you provoked this, that we were defending ourselves." "Maybe," Emma said, "but you'll still be dead. Is that enough for you, dying just to take me with you?" Emma was quiet for 3 heartbeats. Then, "Yeah, it's enough." Dutch Reynolds drew first. Stupid. Overconfident. Thought his reputation mattered more than reality. It didn't. Bang! Emma fired from the hip, didn't even raise the rifle to her shoulder. The Henry kicked. Dutch's chest exploded. He staggered backward, hit the porch railing, went over. Dead before he hit the ground. 1 down. 4 remain. Cutter Morgan and both Pike brothers drew simultaneously. Professional, coordinated. The kind of crossfire that should have cut Emma down. But she was already moving. Dove left, rolled behind the water trough in front of Morrison's dry goods. 3 guns fired. Bullets punched holes in the trough. Water sprayed, catching moonlight like diamonds. Bang, bang, bang. Emma came up shooting. Worked the lever between shots. Smooth, fast, the Henry singing its brass song. Cutter took one in the throat. Went down gurgling, clutching at the ruin, eyes wide with the understanding that he was drowning in his own blood. 2 down, 3 remain. Tom Pike, the veteran, the one with the eyes that tracked threats, got a shot off that tugged Emma's sleeve. Close. Too close. She pivoted, fired twice. Bang. Bang. Tom Pike fell, hit the porch hard, tried to get up, couldn't. Blood spreading across his shirt, black in the moonlight. 3 down. 2 remain. Morrison Ranch, 1922. I have to stop writing. My hand shakes so badly the words become illegible. "Morphine?" Alice asks. "No, not yet." I flex my fingers, trying to work feeling back into them. I need to finish this part. Need to tell you about James Pike. The young one. 20 years old. Maybe 21. I close my eyes, see his face. He watched his brother fall. Watched Tom try to get up and fail. And he did what young men do when they're scared and angry and stupid. "He charged," Alice says quietly. "He charged." James Pike screamed, rage, grief, terror, all mixed together, and ran at Emma with his gun firing wild. Amateur mistake, emotional, exactly what not to do. Emma stood her ground, tracked him, led him by maybe 3 feet to account for his forward momentum. Bang! James Pike stopped mid-stride, looked down at the red bloom spreading across his shirt, looked up at Emma, confusion replacing rage. "Ma?" he said, or maybe "no," or just made a sound that wasn't words. Then he fell face down in the dust. 4 down, 1 remains. I watched Emma's face in that moment, and I saw it, just for half a second, so fast you'd miss it if you weren't looking for it. Grief. She'd killed a boy barely older than Billy Cotter. Killed him clean and professional, and for half a second her face crumpled with the weight of it. Then she forced it back down, locked it away. Became that woman from the canyon again, the one with clarity instead of doubt. She turned toward Cole Brennan. Cole had backed into Murphy's doorway during the shooting. Now he raised his hands, and there was no smile anymore, no confidence, just fear, pure and simple. "Wait," he said. "Wait, Jesus Christ, just wait." Emma walked forward. The Henry's barrel tracked him with every step. She worked the lever. Fresh round chambered, the brass ejected, caught moonlight, fell spinning to the dust. "I've got money," Cole said. His voice was different now, higher, desperate. Lots of money, $10,000, 20. Name your price. You can have the farm, the bank, everything. Just, I don't want your money. Then what do you want? Emma stopped 10 feet away. The Henry aimed at his chest. I want you to feel what my father felt. Powerless. Broken. Knowing you're about to lose everything, and there's nothing you can do about it. I'm sorry. I didn't mean... Yes, you did. Bang. The bullet took Cole in the right shoulder, spun him sideways. His gun fell from nerveless fingers. He clutched the wound, blood pumping between his fingers, staggered, fell to his knees in the doorway. Emma closed the distance, stood over him, pressed the Henry's barrel against his forehead. Please, Cole said. Blood pumped between his fingers, ran down his arm, dripped onto the porch. Please don't. I can leave. I'll leave Red Creek tonight. You'll never see me again, I swear on... You're right, Emma said. I won't. Her finger moved to the trigger. I ran. Didn't think. Didn't plan. Just ran across the street through the spectators toward Emma and Cole, and the moment that would define both their lives. Emma, I said. She didn't look at me, didn't move. Just stood there with the rifle pressed to Cole Brennan's forehead and her finger on the trigger. And I could see the calculation happening behind her eyes. 1 pound of pressure, maybe less. Justice, revenge, the man who'd beaten her father to pulp, dead in the dirt where he belonged. Emma, don't. Why not? Her voice was flat, empty. The voice of someone who'd already decided and was just being polite by asking. I stepped closer, close enough to see her face clearly in the lamplight spilling from Murphy's. And I saw what I'd feared I'd see. Not rage, not grief, not even satisfaction. Just that terrible clarity. The canyon look. The look that said she was good at this, terrifyingly good. And part of her, God help her, part of her, felt alive in a way she hadn't felt since the last time she'd killed. Because your father's alive, I said. The words came from somewhere, some part of me that still believed in redemption. Because you're not a killer. I just killed 4 men, Richard, in self-defense, in the heat of the moment, but this, I gestured at Cole, kneeling, bleeding, begging. This is different. This is execution. And if you pull that trigger, you'll never be able to come back from it. Emma's finger tightened on the trigger. The barrel pressed harder against Cole's forehead, leaving an indentation in the skin. He beat my father to pulp in front of 30 men, she said quietly. He's going to do it to someone else's father tomorrow, and the day after that, until someone stops him. Then let the law stop him. The law? She laughed, but there was no humor in it. The law works for him, Richard. The sheriff, the judge, half the county. There is no law here except what we make. She was right. We both knew it. Then make mercy, I said. Morrison Ranch, 1922. That's what you said, Alice whispers. Make mercy. Yes. But that's not what you were thinking. I look at her, my granddaughter, 20 years old, smart enough to see through 40 years of carefully constructed lies. No, I say, it's not. What were you thinking? I write. I was thinking, don't pull that trigger. Not because Cole Brennan deserves mercy, not because it's the right thing to do, but because I saw your face when you shot those 4 men. I saw the clarity, the terrible competence, the part of you that felt alive. And I knew if you pulled that trigger, if you killed a man in cold blood while he begged for his life, that part would win. Forever. You'd chase that feeling, maybe not today, maybe not this year, but someday, somewhere, someone would look at you wrong and you'd find a reason. I didn't save Cole Brennan. I saved you from yourself. And I never told you because how do you tell someone you love that you stopped them because you saw the monster they could become? Alice reads what I've written. Tears run down her face. Did it work? She asks. Did you save her? I don't know, I say, honestly. She lowered the gun. Cole Brennan lived. But Emma, my voice breaks. Emma spent the next 28 years sitting on a porch wondering if she'd made a mistake, wondering if mercy was just another word for cowardice, wondering if I'd saved her or damned her. And you never told her the truth. No. Why not? I look at the pages spreading across my desk. 30 years of guilt made visible. Because some truths are heavier than mercy, I say. Red Creek, June 12, 1892. Emma stood with the rifle pressed to Cole Brennan's forehead for what felt like hours, but was probably 30 seconds. I watched her face, saw the war happening behind her eyes, justice or mercy. The man who'd destroyed her father or the person she wanted to be. The clarity of violence or the uncertainty of compassion. Her finger trembled on the trigger. Then, slowly, like lowering a weight she'd been carrying for miles, she pulled the rifle back. "Step away from him," she said to me. I did. Emma looked down at Cole Brennan, bleeding, terrified, alive. "You're leaving Red Creek," she told him. "Tonight. Right now. You take your money and you go. Kansas, Colorado, Mexico, I don't care. But you leave. And if you ever come back, if I ever hear you're within 100 miles of Red Creek, I finish this." She worked the lever, ejected the unfired round. It fell to the porch between them, spinning, brass-catching lamplight. "We clear?" Cole nodded. Couldn't speak. Just nodded and clutched his shoulder and looked at her like she was the devil himself. "Good." Emma turned to the crowd. 30 faces, some frightened, some awed, none willing to meet her eyes. "Somebody get him bandaged and on a horse. He's got an hour." She walked past me without looking back, untied her horse, mounted up, rode home under a hunter's moon while 4 bodies cooled in the street, and Cole Brennan bled on Murphy's porch, and I stood there wondering if I'd just witnessed salvation or damnation. I found her 3 hours later at her father's bedside in my clinic. Samuel was still unconscious, breathing shallow but steady. The lung wound had stopped whistling. Small mercies. Emma sat in the chair beside him, the Henry rifle across her lap, blood on her dress. Not her blood. Her hands were perfectly steady now. No shaking, no trembling, just still. "Did he leave?" she asked without looking at me. "Yes, Sheriff Wade put him on a horse. Last I saw he was headed south." "Good." We sat in silence for a long time. Outside I could hear the town stirring, undertaker's wagon collecting bodies, whispers, speculation, the sound of a town processing violence. "Richard," Emma said finally, "did I do the right thing?" I wanted to say yes, wanted to give her certainty, peace, absolution. But I'd seen her face with that rifle pressed to Cole's forehead. I'd seen the war in her eyes, and I knew she'd be fighting that war for the rest of her life. "I don't know," I said honestly. "But you did the hard thing, and the hard thing is usually the right thing." She nodded, looked at her father, took his good hand in both of hers. "He's going to die, isn't he?" she said quietly. "Maybe not today, maybe not this week, but soon." "I don't know that either." Liar, but there was no anger in it, just exhaustion. I was quiet, because she was right. I'd set the bones, packed the lung wound, splinted the hand. But I'd felt Samuel's pulse, seen the gray color beneath the bruises, heard the irregularity in his heartbeat. 79 years of fighting. His body was going to give out. Maybe not from the beating, maybe just from being done. "If he dies, Emma said, "and Cole Brennan is alive in Mexico or Colorado or wherever he runs to, doing this to someone else's father, tell me, Richard, did I do the right thing?" I put my hand on her shoulder, the only comfort I could offer. "Ask me in 30 years, I said. Morrison Ranch, 1922. "It's been 30 years, Alice says. "What's your answer?" I look at the pages, look at my shaking hands. Look at the morphine bottle that will carry me through maybe 2 more days before the cancer wins. "I still don't know," I say. "Grandpa, Cole Brennan went to Tucson, set up the same schemes, hurt the same kind of people. Emma spared him, and he went on to destroy a dozen more families. I write, did her mercy accomplish anything except prolonging cruelty? But Emma didn't become a killer," Alice says. "You saved her from that." Did I? Or did I condemn her to 28 years of wondering if she'd made a mistake? 28 years of sitting on a porch alone, asking herself the same question every sunset, should I have pulled the trigger? Alice is quiet. Maybe, I say. There are no right answers, just choices and their costs. Emma chose mercy. She paid for it every day until she died. And you? Alice asks. What did you choose? I look at her, my granddaughter, the only person who'll know this story when I'm gone. I chose to love someone I couldn't have, and to protect her from herself, and to carry the weight of whether that protection was salvation or cruelty. I close my eyes. I paid for it too. The fire crackles. Outside, snow falls. Inside, an old man dies by inches and tries to decide if his life's defining choice was mercy or mistake. Red Creek, June 13th, 1892. Morning, after the undertaker buried 4 men that morning in the rocky ground behind the church. Dutch Reynolds, Cutter Morgan, Tom Pike, James Pike. No one claimed the bodies. No one said words over them. They went into the earth the way they'd lived, anonymous, violent, unmourned. I stood at my clinic window and watched the graves being filled while Samuel Marsh fought for breath on my examination table. Emma had gone home at dawn, hadn't slept, just sat beside her father all night, holding his hand, the Henry rifle across her lap, like a widow's shawl. Go home, I'd told her when the sun rose. Get some rest. I'll watch him. She'd looked at me with eyes that hadn't blinked in hours. If he wakes up, you send Billy for me, immediately. I will. She'd left. Ridden home through the early light while Red Creek whispered about what she'd done, about the 4 bodies, about Cole Brennan fleeing in the night with a bullet in his shoulder and fear in his eyes, about the Marsh girl who'd turned into something they didn't recognize. Cole Brennan came to my clinic that afternoon. I heard the horse outside, looked up from changing Samuel's bandages, saw him through the window, pale, swaying in the saddle, blood soaking through the makeshift wrapping someone had put on his shoulder. He almost fell dismounting, caught himself on the hitching post. Part of me wanted to let him bleed, turn him away, tell him to ride to the next town, the next doctor, anyone but me. But I'd taken an oath. First, do no harm. So I helped him inside, sat him down in the back room, away from Samuel, started cutting away the bloody shirt. She's going to kill me, Cole said. His voice was different, smaller, the confidence stripped away like the shirt I was peeling off. You know that, don't you? Someday, somewhere, she's going to finish it. Then I suggest you keep riding, I said. The bullet had gone clean through, entered front of the shoulder, exited back. Lucky shot, or unlucky, depending on perspective. If Emma had aimed 6 inches left, he'd be dead. I cleaned the wound. No infection yet, but it would come if he didn't take care of it. Packed it with carbolic-soaked gauze, wrapped it tight. You're going to need to change this dressing twice a day, I told him. Keep it clean. If you see red streaks spreading from the wound, find a doctor immediately. Understand? He nodded, winced as I tied off the bandage. That's when I saw it. His coat hung on the chair beside him. The inside pocket gaped open, and something yellowed peeked out. Paper. Old paper. What's that? I asked. Cole's eyes followed mine. For a second something flickered across his face. Calculation, maybe. Or resignation. Proof, he said. Of what? He reached into the pocket with his good hand, pulled out a document, unfolded it carefully. That the marshland was stolen, he said. That it should have been mine. He handed it to me. Morrison Ranch, 1922. The Brennan deed, Alice says. Yes. I look at the yellow document I've kept all these years, pressed between the pages of my medical journal. 1845 Mexican land grant to Thomas Brennan. 300 acres, exact boundaries matching the Marsh homestead. So Cole was telling the truth. His family did own it first. Legally, the deed was superseded by the Homestead Act of 1862. Joseph Marsh, Emma's great-grandfather, filed a claim in 1851 under U.S. territorial law. The claim was valid, but Cole grew up believing his family's land was stolen. Yes. I traced the faded Spanish text with one arthritic finger. Thomas Brennan died in 1853, poor and bitter. His son, Cole's father, grew up hearing about the 300 acres the Marsh family had taken, about legacy lost, about justice denied. So Cole wasn't just greedy, Alice says slowly. He believed he was reclaiming what was rightfully his. Both can be true, I say. Entitlement and greed aren't mutually exclusive. Red Creek, June 1892. I stared at the deed for a long time while Cole sat bleeding in my clinic. "Does Emma know?" I asked. "No." "Are you going to tell her?" Cole laughed, bitter, broken. "What's the point? I'm leaving. The land's hers. Let her think she won fair and square. You could contest the claim, take it to territorial court. With what money? What influence?" He clutched his wounded shoulder. "She took everything. My men, my reputation, my courage." His voice dropped. "I used to think I was dangerous. Now I know I'm just a coward who hired dangerous men." I finished wrapping his shoulder in silence. "There's something else you should know," I said, "about the land." I'd found it 2 days earlier while treating Samuel. A surveyor's map in the old man's coat pocket. He must have been carrying it to show the bank. Proof of value, collateral. I spread it on the table beside the Brennan deed. "See this?" I pointed to the notation in faded ink. 1847 Territorial Survey. Gold deposit. Right under the North 40, where Emma fixes fence. Cole stared at the map. Something died behind his eyes. "I knew," he said quietly. "Old surveyor told me 3 years ago. That's why I bought up all the land in this valley. That's why I needed the Marsh place specifically." He looked at me. "It's not just about my grandfather's legacy. That gold is worth millions." "Does Emma know?" "No. Samuel didn't know either. The map was in his attic. Forgotten." We sat in silence, the weight of it settling. "So you were going to take her land for both reasons," I said. "Family honor and profit." "Yes." "And you're telling me this why?" Cole stood, unsteady, pulled on his coat with his good arm. "Because in about 6 hours, I'll be in Kansas. In 6 months, I'll be someone else, somewhere else, doing the same damn thing to different people." He looked at Samuel, unconscious, in the other room. "And I wanted someone to know that I'm not just a monster. I'm a man who believed he had a right to what he took. Doesn't make it better, just makes it true." He walked to the door, stopped. "Tell Emma something for me," he said. "What?" "Tell her she was right to spare me. Not because I deserved it, but because if she'd pulled that trigger, she'd have become me. And the world doesn't need another Cole Brennan." Then he left. I never saw him again. 3 days later, I rode out to the Marsh place. Emma was mending fence on the North 40, the same work she'd been doing the morning her father rode into town, as if nothing had changed. But everything had changed. She saw me coming, set down her tools, waited. I dismounted, pulled 2 documents from my saddlebag. "Emma, there's something you need to see." We sat on the porch of her father's house, her house now really, though Samuel still breathed in my clinic. I showed her the Brennan deed first. She read it in silence. Her face didn't change. "So Cole believed the land was his," she said finally. "By family right, yes. Legally, your great-grandfather's claim superseded it. But morally," I trailed off, "morally it's complicated." She handed the deed back. "Doesn't change what he did to Pa. Legal theft is still theft, and belief doesn't excuse cruelty." "No," I agreed, "it doesn't." "Is that all you came to show me?" I hesitated, then showed her the surveyor's map. "There's gold under your land, Emma, under the North 40, worth millions probably." She stared at the map, not with greed or excitement, just weariness. "Cole knew," she said, not a question. "Yes." So it wasn't just about his grandfather, it was about profit. Both, entitlement and greed. Emma stood, walked to the edge of the porch, looked out over 300 acres of legacy, dirt and wheat and blood and gold. "Do you regret it?" I asked, sparing him. She was quiet for a long time. "Every day," she said finally. "But if I'd killed him for revenge while he believed he was reclaiming stolen land, while he knew there was gold here." She turned to face me. I don't know, Richard. Maybe mercy was for me, not him. Maybe I needed to prove I could choose something other than violence. Did you prove it? I proved I could pull a trigger on 4 men and feel alive doing it. I proved I could press a gun to someone's head and really want, to pull it. Her voice cracked. And I proved I could stop myself. Barely. She sat down on the porch steps, suddenly small. That's what scares me, she whispered. Not that I killed 4 men, that I was good at it. That part of me wants to do it again. I sat beside her, close enough our shoulders almost touched. But you haven't, I said. 3 days ago you had every reason, every justification, and you chose mercy instead. For now is all any of us have. We sat in silence, watching the sun set over 300 acres worth millions that neither of us cared about anymore. Red Creek, July 3rd, 1892. Samuel Marsh died on a Tuesday morning, 3 weeks after the beating. Not from his injuries. The ribs were healing, the lung had reinflated, the hand would never work properly, but it wouldn't kill him. His heart just stopped, gave out. One morning, gentle and final, Emma found him in his bed at my clinic where I'd kept him for observation. He looked peaceful for the first time in months, like he'd been waiting to make sure she was safe before he let go. He held on, she said, touching his cold hand. Held on just long enough to know I'd be all right. Yes, I said. I'm not all right, Richard. I know. But he believed I would be, so I will be. The funeral was small. 50 people came, more than I expected. The same 30 from Murphy's, plus 20 more from outlying farms. They stood around the grave with guilt written on their faces, and Emma hated them for it. For coming now when it didn't matter. For bringing flowers when they should have brought fists 3 weeks ago. But she let them stay because her father would have wanted it. Sheriff Wade approached after, hat in his hands. Miss Emma just wanted to say, things are changing in Red Creek. Banks got new owners. Silverton family from Kansas City. Good people. They're forgiving debts. Giving extensions. Being fair. Took 4 bodies and my father's death to make things fair, Emma said. Wade looked at his boots. Yeah, it did. And I should have stood up sooner. I'm sorry. Sorry doesn't bring him back. No, ma'am, it doesn't. He left. Emma stood at her father's grave until sunset, thinking about courage, about mercy, about whether she'd made the right choice or just the hardest one. Morrison Ranch, 1922. She never married, Alice says. No. Why not? I look at the pages spreading across my desk, 30 years of watching Emma from a distance. Because after that night, she became someone no one else could understand, I say. The men in Red Creek either feared her or wanted to own her. The women whispered. And Emma just sat on her porch every evening with the Henry rifle across her lap and watched the horizon. Waiting for what? I don't know, maybe for Cole to come back? Maybe for absolution? Maybe for someone to tell her she'd done the right thing? I pause. Maybe for me to tell her the truth. Did you ever think about it? Telling her you loved her? Every day for 28 years. Why didn't you? Because I'd promised her mother. Because I was her doctor. Because I was too old. I close my eyes. And because I was a coward. Red Creek, October 1920. The last time I saw Emma alive, she was 62 years old. I'd retired to Colorado 5 years earlier, but I still visited Red Creek once a year. Old habits, old ghosts. I found her on the porch. Where else? The Henry rifle across her lap, eyes on the horizon. She was weathered now, gray-haired, but still strong. Still capable. Still alone. Richard, she said without looking at me, thought you'd stopped coming. Just running late. I climbed the steps, sat in the chair beside her, the guest chair, the one I'd occupied probably 100 times over the years. She made coffee. We watched the sun go down. Neither of us mentioned that night. We never did. Heard Cole Brennan died in Tucson, she said finally. 2 years ago, heart attack. I heard. Natural causes, quick and easy. She smiled without humor. More mercy than he deserved. Maybe that's how mercy works. The undeserving get it too. Maybe. We sat in silence. The prairie wind whispered through the wheat. Crows circled, dark against the orange sky. "Richard," Emma said. Her voice was different, smaller. Did I do the right thing? It was the same question she'd asked 28 years ago, the same question I'd been avoiding for 28 years. "I don't know, Emma, but you did the hard thing." The hard thing feels an awful lot like the wrong thing, most days. Maybe that's how you know it was right. She looked at me then, really looked at me, and I saw everything in her eyes. 28 years of wondering. 28 years of sitting on this porch alone. 28 years of carrying the weight of mercy. "I'm tired, Richard," she whispered. "I know. I don't mean physically, I mean—" She gestured at the prairie, the sunset, the endless horizon. "I'm tired of carrying this, of not knowing, of wondering every damn day if I should have pulled that trigger." I wanted to tell her then, wanted to confess everything, that I'd stopped her not for mercy, but for love, that I'd watched her from a distance for 28 years, loving her, wanting her, keeping my promise to a dead woman. Instead, I took her hand, held it the way I'd held it once before, 38 years ago when she'd come to confess about the canyon. "Emma, I don't know if you did the right thing, but I know you did the thing that let you sleep at night. Eventually." "Did it?" She pulled her hand back, because I still see James Pike's face, that boy, 20 years old. I killed him and 3 others in 30 seconds, and part of me felt alive doing it. "But you stopped yourself with Cole." "Barely. You stopped me. You'd already started lowering the gun before I spoke. I saw it." She looked at me with those eyes that had seen too much. "Liar," she said, but gently. "You've been lying to me for 30 years, Richard. About something. I've never known what." My heart stopped. It's all right. Whatever it is, it's all right." She turned back to the sunset. "We all carry secrets. Mine is that I wanted to pull that trigger more than I've wanted anything in my life. Yours is whatever you've been protecting me from knowing." Then we sat in silence until the sun disappeared and the stars came out. "I should go," I said finally. "Will you come back next year?" "If I'm still alive." "Me too." I left her there, on the porch, Henry rifle across her lap, eyes on the stars. It was the last time we spoke. Morrison Ranch, March 15th, 1922, 3 a.m. The morphine has stopped working. Alice sleeps in the chair beside my bed, exhausted from 3 days of reading my confession, asking questions, watching me die by inches. The pain is fire now. In my bones, my chest, everywhere the cancer has spread. I have maybe hours, maybe less. I pick up the pen one last time. Emma Marsh died in March 1920. Heart stopped, like her father. She was found on her porch by a neighbor boy. Billy Cotter's son, actually. History repeating. The Henry rifle was across her lap. Her eyes were on the horizon. She'd been dead maybe a day. No one to find her sooner. No one to sit with her. No one to hold her hand at the end. I'd promised her mother I wouldn't let her be alone. I failed. Alice wakes when my pen drops. "Grandpa?" "Almost done," I whisper. Each breath is agony now. One more thing, to write. "Rest, please, you can finish tomorrow." "There is no tomorrow, child." I pick up the pen with shaking hands. Just one more thing." She holds the paper steady while I write. "I stopped Emma from pulling that trigger because I loved her. Not because mercy was right, not because Cole deserved it, but because I couldn't bear to watch her become something I couldn't love. Selfish, cowardly. True. She spent 28 years alone because I protected her from herself, or because I was afraid of losing her completely. I've never been sure which. Did I do the right thing? Ask me in 30 years. It's been 30 years. I still don't know. My hand cramps. The pen falls again. "Grandpa," Alice says, tears running down her face. "Grandpa, did you do the right thing?" I look at her. Think of Emma on that porch. Think of James Pike falling in the dust. Think of Cole Brennan running into the night. Think of Samuel Marsh broken on a sawdust floor. Think of all the choices we make and the costs we pay. I did the hard thing, I whisper, same as Emma. Is that enough? I hope so. The pain is fading now, not because it's less, but because I'm less. Fading, dissolving. Finally getting the morphine I've been waiting for, the morphine of not being anymore. Alice, I say, the memoir, don't publish it. Why not? Because some truths are heavier than mercy. Let it be. Let Emma rest. Let me rest. Then why write it? Good question. I've been writing for 3 days, and I'm only now asking it. Because, I say slowly, I needed to know if confessing would give me peace. Did it? I close my eyes. See Emma in sunlight, mending wire. See Emma in moonlight, rifle pressed to Cole's forehead. See Emma at sunset, asking if she'd done the right thing. See myself, 52 years old, running across a dusty street to stop the woman I loved from destroying herself. No, I say, but at least now I know. Dr. Richard Morrison died at 4:47 a.m. on March 15, 1922. Cancer, morphine failure, old age, and older guilt. His granddaughter Alice buried him next to his wife Eleanor in the Morrison family plot. She kept the memoir in a trunk for 40 years, never publishing it, honoring his wishes. In 1962, Alice Morrison, now Alice Morrison Webb, 70 years old, her own children grown, donated the memoir to the Colorado Historical Society with instructions it be sealed until 2020. Let the dead rest, she wrote in her cover letter, but let the truth survive them. The memoir was unsealed in 2020, 300 pages, confession and question, story and uncertainty. It ends without answers, just like the lives it describes. Red Creek, South Dakota. Present day. The town is gone now. Buildings collapsed. Streets reclaimed by prairie grass. Only the cemetery remains. Iron fence rusted. Gravestones leaning. Names worn smooth by wind and time. Samuel Marsh, 1813 to 1892. He held on. Emma Marsh, 1858 to 1920. She chose the hard thing. No stone for Richard Morrison. He's buried in Colorado next to a wife he honored and a promise he kept. The 300 acres are a nature preserve now. The gold was never mined. Environmental protections, legal tangles, bureaucratic inertia. It's still there under the North 40, worth millions to no one. On summer evenings, hikers sometimes report seeing a woman on the foundation where the Marsh house stood, sitting, watching the horizon. Henry rifle across her lap. Local legend says she's waiting for someone to tell her she did the right thing. They say she'll be waiting a long time, maybe forever. Because mercy doesn't come with answers, just costs. And some questions don't have endings, just horizons. The end.